Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, this is Punk Brats, a podcast focused on the lives and experiences of our military brats. We didn't serve, we got served. Now here are your Punk Brats, Rose and Lisa.
Hi everybody, this is Rose.
And this is Lisa. Welcome to Punk Brats, our pilot episode. So as we've been promoting this Punk Brats podcast for the last few weeks, folks have asked me, Lisa, what's a punk brat? Like, I've gotten messages and all, and I'm like, well, my sister came up with the name, so why don't you tell everyone about how you came up with Punk Brats?
To be honest, it literally just popped in my head. Rebellious, free-spirited military kids who have a whole unique subculture of their own. Yeah. And punk rock is counterculture, and I think it's just the perfect way to describe our experiences.
Yeah. Well, Rose, a lot of people who know you and know me from our high school days, they're going to associate me more of a metalhead, but you're definitely the punk rocker, and you still are. So for those out there listening, they're laughing right now and smiling, saying, yeah, they know exactly. They can see you coming up with this name.
I'm a combination of both, actually. I mean, think about it. Living overseas most of our lives, we grew up third culture brats. We grew up with a Korean mom. Yes. We grew up with an American dad of Puerto Rican descent. Mm-hmm. And we're running around the streets of Japan, Germany. So I think the name is perfect. I think it describes us perfectly. And I think we're going to be meeting a lot of other brats out there that have similar experiences to ours. Maybe not the exact same ones, but, very similar.
Yeah, and if like we said, Rose described this podcast. If any of y'all know someone that's unique, has a story to share, let us know. Contact us. Go to our website, www.punkbrats.com.
Well, this is the perfect time for us to introduce ourselves to our listeners. I'm Rose. I'm the oldest of three girls. And I was born in Seoul, South Korea at Yongsan Army Base. I currently live here in Texas. I live with my family. I've got 19-year-old twins who are currently sophomores in college. I have a Weimaraner, so all you dog lovers out there, I love my dog Boris. He's so cute. And those of you that follow me on social media, most of my pictures are of my dog.
And I'm the middle sister. I'm Lisa, and I was born at Fort Hood, Texas. Very proud native Texan here at Darnell Army Hospital. And I also reside here in Texas, right up the road from my sister, actually. She can walk here. And I have a wonderful husband and also two daughters who, well, I won't give away my age or their age because it'll give away my age, but one's getting married next February, and one's about to graduate from college and go on to nursing school. And we have our sweet little Shotzi, who's a bitch poo. And that's my family background. And we also have Sweet Pea, right?
She is our youngest sister, our baby sister, who currently resides in California. And we are just hoping to try and get her here to Texas.
One day, I hope. Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Someday.
Lisa, we were just talking about where we were born, and that just reminded me that I had met a military brat not too long ago, and one of our greetings always is like, where were you born? When you find out you're a military brat, right? That's pretty common. Where you're from, not, or where you're born. Where you're born.
Yeah.
And she said that she was born in Saudi Arabia.
That's so cool. See?
That's so cool. I would have never guessed in a million years seeing her, And just like her looking at me, she's like, wow, I would have never guessed you were born in Korea. So that's one of our unique experiences that we share as well. And it's really kind of cool, I think.
No, totally. I mean, whenever I meet another military brat, you're absolutely right. The first thing is like, well, where were you stationed? Uh-huh. Or where were your parents stationed? Yeah. Did you know? And if you were at the same place or somewhat similar, you're always like, well, did you know or whatever,
Yeah. Or did you do
this?
this?
See what you had connected with them or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, for instance, like if I meet somebody from Yokota, did you know the pony store? Did you go to the pony store? Yeah. And people out there who have been to Yokota will know exactly what we're talking about. And probably some of you out there going, what are you talking about?
Now,
it was an electronics store.
Have you ever done this where you mix up your German friends, our Germany friends to our Asia, Japan friends?
All the time.
Yeah.
You I've done that plenty of times.
Where did I know this brat friend? Oh, yeah, this person was from here.
Or I'll say, hey, did you hear that so-and-so and whatever, is doing this or doing that? And they're like, who is that? And I'm like, oh, no, never mind. That was my friend from when I lived in Germany. Or that was my friend from, Japan.
But it is
Korea.
exciting that we still stay in touch with our friends, Yeah. I mean, Rose and I still stay in touch with our friends from Zama. I was there for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, and I'm still best friends almost 40 years later with these same people. Mm-hmm. We have we have a pretty regular Zama reunion that's very well coordinated by our Zama Alumni Association, which shout out to y'all, doing a great job. But, you mentioned something when we were off air, about music.
Yeah?
Yeah. What do you think about music?
Well, I was saying off air that the other thing that is unique to us is that, I don't know maybe if it's unique to us, but you hear a song and it takes you back to where you were.
Yeah.
And it helps you kind of form a timeline.
Exactly.
I'll hear a song and then I'll think, oh gosh, I was in Japan riding the train in Tokyo going to this concert or doing this.
I won't tell you who I had a crush on, but when I hear Madonna Crazy for You, right? Uh-huh. You're just like, oh my God, that takes me back to 7th grade. Yeah. But, and then speaking of that, that was my first concert, Rush, Grace Under Pressure at the Budokan in Japan with you.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
And with Kevin and Tim, who worked for Dad. Uh-huh. But, we went with some trusted Army officials to a concert, and I didn't know years later that concert was going to be very influential to me for the music that I listen to now. But yeah, my first concert was in Tokyo at 12 years old.
That's pretty cool.
Crazy. But we've had some good times, and we could just talk forever about all the things we've done, but this whole podcast is about sharing unique stories that other people have had in their lives. But here and there, as you hear our episodes, we will dabble in our lives and share with you the things that we've got to experience.
Yeah, and you guys share your experiences with us. You can always go to punkbrats.com, and there's a contact form on there, and share your stories. Email or if you have any shout outs that you would like, we could go into that too. Or if you think that you have an interesting story, maybe we'll have you on as a guest.
You can email us at info@punkbrats.com. But right now, like I said, I could chat forever, but I think, Rose, you have some history to share with us, right? About being a military brat and about our school?
Yeah. So we thought that with every episode, it'd be kind of a fun thing to do a Did You Know? So with my teacher background, on my bulletin board every day, I would change it with a different Did You Know? And I thought this might be something cool that we can incorporate into our show. So, did you know that in 1946, the Department of Defense Dependent Schools, also known as DODS, which we called it
That's
DODS.
Another thing. Did you go to DODS school? Which one?
Yeah. Was created for dependents of military members of the armed forces in overseas areas. And after World War II, the increased demand for American education overseas was a result of the government's decision to allow soldiers to bring their families when deployed. So by 1949, almost 100 schools were being operated separately by the Army, Navy, and Air Force in countries around the world.
We need to do our research, and next time we'll have to share how many DOD schools there are in the world.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting.
Wow. Totally.
Which is cool. I love the DOD schools I went to.
Yeah, that's a really good FYI. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that. The premise of this podcast is to visit with guests who are military brats who've done some innovative, unique, remarkable things in their life. And so I thought it would be a good idea that during our podcast to highlight some brats in the news. And so I have a brat to share about, Rose.
That's cool. So who's this brat in the news?
So the new face of the Gerber baby, and we all know the Gerber baby. Mm-hmm. The new face of the Gerber baby food company was announced this month. They picked an Air Force brat named Maddie. Oh, I know. Maddie's mom and dad are high school sweethearts. Her mom and dad came from first-generation immigrant families from the Philippines, and both of Maddie's grandfathers served in the U.S. Navy. And Maddie's dad is a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy and has served our country for 16 years as a lieutenant colonel physician.
Wow.
Yeah, and her mom's a dentist. And, we wish Maddie nothing but the best and all, as they say, Gerber baby. She's a Gerber baby. How cute.
So cool.
And she's an Air Force brat.
Yeah.
And she's Asian. That's so cool, too. I got to highlight that just because I'm half Asian. But it's just really cool that an Air Force brat is the new Gerber face this year.
I think it's super cool, too.
Yeah.
Yay, Maddie.
Yay, Maddie.
It's definitely time to introduce our special guest. Scott Parks is the co-host of Dana and Parks, Kansas City's most popular afternoon radio program on 98.1 KMBZ.
Thank you, Scott, so much for being here with us today, and my sister Rose, the other Punk Brat.
It's a privilege to be on the inaugural pilot broadcast. So thank you. I'm humbled.
Well, like us, you're an Army brat. And why don't we just start off by you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. It's like all of your stories, it's long and winded, but I'll put it into the most succinct way that I can. I was born at let me rephrase, what used to be known as Fort Benning. I was born at Fort Benning in 1971 and lived there a whopping 6 weeks before my parents were transferred to Amarillo, Texas, where my dad was a recruiter. We were then sent to Fort Hood, Texas in 1974. In 1977, up to Fort Richardson, which is to say Anchorage, Alaska. Back to Fort Hood in 1980, where we lived for the longest time that we ever stayed at one base, and that was 4 years. In 1984, we were sent to Heidelberg, Germany, which at the time was the headquarters for the U.S. Army in Europe, where my dad was in charge of all things morale. And then in 1986, the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life, other than the birth of my children, was my dad was sent, and I think it was actually as a punishment, to Rheinberg, Germany, where I met the two of you. And we only lived there 1 year. And we can maybe get into this later. It was the most formative, impelling year of my life. And I've always looked at that 1 year in Dusseldorf when we were in Rheinberg as the year that changed my life. And like I said, we can get into that later. After that, my dad got orders. I'll never forget. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and I did not want to leave Rheinberg.
Nobody wants to leave Rheinberg.
I loved it. It was the best year of my life. And I remember we were sitting at the kitchen table in our home in Xanten, Xanten, the only city in all of Europe with an X. And my dad said, "We got our orders today." And I'm sure he told my mom in advance. But I said, "Okay, where are we going?" This was in the summer of '87. And he said, "We're going to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas." And I looked at him and I go, "Who did you piss off?" And he goes, No. This is a great assignment. This is going to be great. I'm going to be a professor. And this is going to be a good assignment. Well, you guys know how it goes. For a lot of Army brats, and I hate the term Army brats, but whatever. For a lot of us, where you stop is where you stay. And so my dad retired in October of 1989 and as a lieutenant colonel. And this is just where I've been for the last 37 years. And I don't regret it. When we first moved here, I absolutely hated Kansas City. I hated it. It was hot. It wasn't Germany. But over the last 37 years, I've grown to love this town. And
I know they love you.
Well, thank you. It's a remarkable city, and I do love this town.
So, Rose, what does that mean? What you were going to ask us? What's the common question?
So, how do you feel when someone asks you where you're from? Like when you meet a stranger and they ask you that dreaded question,
that infamous question for a brat,
like all of us, how we feel. Like I always find myself getting tripped up, and I know how to answer it, but I just there's always that like pregnant pause,
So, Rose, that's a great question. And one that I've grappled with over the years. When people say, "Where are you from?" Nowadays, I say I'm from Kansas City.
Yeah.
But in the past, and I still do this to some extent, I say, "Well, I grew up in the military, so there really isn't a home." And I will say this: growing up in the military, and I know that's what this podcast is about, is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
And it's a curse in the sense that like I remember when I moved here to, well, I'm in Kansas City right now, but my dad was assigned at Fort Leavenworth, which is right up the street. Literally, I could drive there in 20 minutes. I remember going to Lansing High School, which is where I finished high school after Dusseldorf. And I was always jealous of the other kids because they had all been going to school with each other since they were in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And here I am. I'm
the new kid.
I'm the new kid. I'm the new kid on the block, and there weren't many of us. Beg your pardon?
I said, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it totally.
And there weren't many of us, and I always felt like I didn't fit in. It was the first school that I went to that was, and I use this term loosely, civilian. It was the first time I had ever gone to a school where there weren't a lot of Army kids. And I just remember feeling like I didn't fit in. And it's probably because I didn't. But I played football and baseball, and I did everything I could. Having said that, I said it was a blessing and a curse. It's a curse in the sense that you never ever get to establish roots. You know what I mean? There's never.
Well, isn't that why we're the dandelion? Rose just reminded me that the military brat is our flower is the dandelion. You blow the dandelion and it goes off and lands where it lands.
Yeah,
we are little dandelions.
Yeah, you never establish roots, and but I will say this. A blessing in the sense that I don't think I would do what I was doing today if I wasn't having to move every 2 or 3 years and always having to, make new friends,
start all over.
Yeah. And it forces you to be social. Because if you're not social, you're not going to make it. Having said that,
true. That's so true.
And so, doing what I do, being on the radio and everything, I think that forced me to be an extrovert, even though when I'm at home, which is where I am right now, I'm an introvert in a weird way. But when I'm out in public, I'm an extrovert because I have to. That was how I survived.
Yeah.
And but I will say this, and I think this is important. You and I and Rose went to school together 37 years ago.
Hey, you're giving our age away. Stop it.
Fine. Well, it's not like it's not on my face. We went to school 37 years ago for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
And look at now.
And we're still talking.
Besties. We see each other regularly. We visit each other. We kept in touch with each other. Our fathers worked together. You're very special to me, Scott. You know that. Scott and I, our other best friend, JoJo, who's no longer with us. We lost him last year. God bless him. We were the three amigos since we were 16 years old, and we've always stayed in touch. And we're still the three amigos, just in a different way. But I wish he was with us now to be a part of this, but we love you, JoJo. But yeah, the one thing I loved about being a brat, well, it brings me to the question what you said. Let's go back. You said you don't like to be referred to as an Army brat. Explain that, because I'm just curious. I wonder how many people feel like that. Because personally, I love being called a brat. So just tell us why you don't like that title.
No, I just don't like the word brat, I guess.
It's an acronym.
I'm an Army kid. I grew up in the military. When people ask me, Rose, you asked earlier, like, when people ask where you're from, what do you say? And I always tell people I grew up in the military, and it kind of answers all the questions. It's a really simple way of saying I don't have a hometown. I never did.
Basically, it's hometown nowhere, friends everywhere.
Right. Yeah. And friends everywhere. And there is literally nowhere that I would say I'm from. I mean, my parents could tell you they're from New York. My mom grew up in the Bronx. My dad grew up on Long Island.
Where were you born again?
I was born in Fort Benning.
Got it.
Which is Sport something or other now.
Yeah.
We're not getting into it. We're not getting into it.
Get it. But go ahead. Finish.
It's not Fort Benning anymore, but it'll be Fort Benning to me till the day I die.
Right.
But my dad was an Army Ranger when he got out of college, and he went to Vietnam. And then when he got back from Vietnam, he was sent back to Fort Benning as a teacher. And that's when I was born at Fort Benning when he got back from Vietnam.
Your father was an amazing Vietnam veteran. He was shot how many times?
6.
6 times. And that man came back stronger than he was when he went there. Raised 2 wonderful boys, beautiful wife. Your dad was an amazing man. I'm so honored and privileged that I got to know him. Now, he was intimidating. You're gonna
no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Hey, okay, this goes into the story of Metallica now. Okay, you guys got a quick story with your dad.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to share this personal story, because I recently, posted a post on my Facebook about meeting Metallica and hanging out with them in Germany, which is something that, is not unusual when you're an American overseas and American bands come by. So Scott's brother posted under there that they should have been there. And this is a story I've never heard. So I'm really curious, and I'm saving it for this podcast. I was going to text you and ask you, but I wanted to save it for this podcast so you could tell us your version of what happened.
Why he wasn't there? Why they weren't there?
You should have been there with us, and you would have been there with us.
What happened, Scott?
I should have and would have. My dad was. What happened was my dad, and God bless him, he was a great man. But my dad always used to tell me, if people don't want to work for you, they won't. Morale is so critical. And he was huge about morale. Later in life, I kind of understood why, but he was always about soldier morale. And if you guys can recall, when we were in Rheinberg, there was no American television.
No.
Nope.
If we were lucky, we would get a Gary Moore video on a Dutch TV channel, right?
Really? That's the example you give us, is Gary Moore?
Right.
Okay, go on, continue.
So if we were lucky, we would get a Gary Moore video on a Dutch TV channel.
That's so true, yeah.
I remember the Reichel building, if you guys will recall, was 9 or 10 stories tall. And then there was the penthouse at the top, which was half bar, half church, which was really weird.
Yes,
of course.
So
weird, right?
Go worship God and then go get your drink on.
Go have a drink.
Yeah. So ominous dominus. And so in January of 87, the Denver Broncos were playing the New York Giants in the Super Bowl.
Oh, remember? My God, did I just say that? Because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I liked them back then. Go ahead.
And I remember my dad coming home prior to the Super Bowl, and he said, I need to get the Super Bowl pumped into the building for the guys. And
meaning the soldiers at the base.
The soldiers, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. For the soldiers, the younger guys, the privates, the PFCs, the specialists.
Take care of them.
He wanted them to have a taste of home. And you may recall, he also brought in that Burger King.
You and Rose worked there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was... And
Rose, there's your first job.
I'll sidetrack for a second. When my dad brought the RV Burger King in, I remember he came home. I'll get back to the Super Bowl in a second. And he throws me this brown shirt and this brown hat. And I look at it and it says Burger King on it. I go, what's this? And he goes, they work for me. Now you work for them. And I'm like, oh, really? But it was a good gig. It was fun. But anyway, regarding the Super Bowl, it was on a Sunday night, and over in Europe, it's like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever ridiculous hour. And my dad wanted the Super Bowl pumped in so that the soldiers could watch the Super Bowl and have a taste of home. And I think it was on the 3rd floor, if I'm not mistaken. You guys correct me if I'm wrong.
For what? The Burger King?
The Rec
No,
Center,
no.
I think.
I mean,
Oh,
the
no,
Rec
the
Center-
Rec
no,
Center,
the
I
Rec
think,
Center
was
was
on the
second floor.
second
Second
floor.
floor. Okay.
Second
So
floor.
Yeah, where
anyway,
the ghost was.
Where
That's
we,
where the ghost was.
where the kids hung out, where we hung out to get
So,
away from everybody.
Mrs. the math teacher had scheduled a test for that Monday morning.
Oh,
Bitch.
Mrs.
Bitch.
That's where we beat.
And,
Right? Yeah. I remember Mrs.
And so my mom was forced me to study and go to bed at a decent hour so I could do the math test. And little did I know, I mean, I knew Metallica was in town. Obviously, I couldn't go to the show because I had a math test the next morning. I had no idea that the Quintero sisters were going to end up on the bus with Metallica, and they were going to take Metallica to the Reichel building to watch the Super Bowl.
We did.
The next morning, I wake up, we're up in Xanton, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I'll never forget, we were having pancakes, and my dad comes in the door at the house, and he's in his fatigues. He's like exhausted, and he sits down at the kitchen table, and I'm eating my pancakes. It's like 5:30 in the morning, something stupid, or 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Early. And he goes, hey, some band showed up at the Super Bowl tonight. I go, some band? He goes, yeah, Metallica.
I'm trying so hard right now not to laugh so hard.
I know. You've heard this story before, but Rose hasn't. And he looks at me, he goes, Metallica? And I go, Metallica? And he goes, yes, Metallica. They showed up at the Super Bowl tonight. Yeah. And can I say bad words on this?
Yes, of course. And you knew we were at the concert the night before. You be you.
Yeah, of course.
You do you. Yeah.
And I go, bullshit. And he goes, yeah, Metallica showed up at the Super Bowl tonight. And I go, you're kidding. And I'll never forget, my dad looks at me. He's exhausted. And he goes, really nice guys, but they stink.
just played a show in front of thousands of people in Essen
and followed us on the Autobahn for almost an hour and a half.
And so,
not to mention Metal Church was with them too.
And Metal Church,
that's right. Metal Church was the opening act. And so I get up, I get on the bus.
We were with Christine McHenry. Hey, right. Christine, if you're listening, shout out. You and Stephanie.
And I get on the bus, and all the way from Xanton to the Reichel building, I'm thinking, I'm never going to hear the end of this. It's never going to end.
And our dad let us skip the school the next day, so we couldn't even see till a couple of days.
No, actually, the next day I got up early to catch a train to go to The Hague because I was in Model United Nations.
Oh, I slept in, y'all.
I was like contemplating, I really should go home after the show. And I was like, no way.
I slept in.
Pretty cool. I met up with Damian and Robert at The Hague.
Fun. Oh, good time.
No, that was the one time I could have met Metallica and never did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something
we had
special.
A good time. That was special.
It was a great time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks to your dad who, originally coordinated all that, because when I met the roadie while I was buying my t-shirt, he's like, hey, you want to come party with us after the show? And I was like, yeah, that would be fun. But, like the Super Bowl is happening tonight. So, and I was like, do I want to go watch the Super Bowl? Because, the Giants were playing, and everybody who knows me knows that the Giants are my favorite team. So I was like, no. And he was like, what, the Super Bowl? You're going to watch the Super Bowl? And
don't you remember how freaked out he got? He goes, can you guys get us into the...
He's like, can we come? And I was like...
But he kept saying we, and we thought it was him.
Yeah, well, I was like that.
Didn't you guys get to ride on their tour bus?
No. They followed us.
They followed us on there. Yeah.
Yeah. Rose had to drive us back.
We were smart enough not to get on the bus.
No, we weren't those kind of girls. No, we were good girls. No. Jimmy raised us right.
Yeah. So
we had
they
a good
followed
time.
us in our car.
We were in 10th grade. Rose was a senior in high school. I was a sophomore. I was 15 and I hadn't even turned 16 yet or anything. I mean, here's a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old.
No,
and these guys, and this is what's so cool for those listening who are Metallica fans. These guys could have gone off with all these German girls who were doing whatever they were doing, flashing them, trying to get their attention. All they wanted to do was talk about music with us, told us to stay true to metal. They were great guys. They hung out the veterans. They were sweet. But let me do this shout out to Lars Ulrich. Lars would not get off the bus. Lars would not even acknowledge the military. So my thing was like, the other three were cool. not Lars.
Oh,
that's my little.
I'd never heard this.
Lars would not
get off the bus.
No, he would not support the American.
He stayed on the military. Bus, but
he was protesting.
But the Germans that were part of the press were also there.
Yeah.
So like the journalists from Metal Hammer, and there was another German.
A lot of people followed us out there.
I don't know. It might have been Kerrang.
Oh, Kerrang.
They were there in the building, and I wish I still had that magazine. I know that Damian's got it. I'll have to ask him to scan it in and send it in.
There was just something controversial that was happening.
And it was just a really, really cool time with those guys. You know, they stayed around, hung around.
Oh,
you know, they signed stuff for the.
It was the first soldiers. Kid. It was the first show Jason Newsted. Remember? Because Cliff Burton died.
Yes, I don't know if it was the very first show, but it was one of the very first.
I thought it was one of the very first shows.
It was because they called him very first.
They called him Jason New Kid.
New Kid. That's how they introduced him. Yeah,
and he was so nice. They were all so nice to us.
They were amazing.
And then when they left, they gathered all the veterans together and they took a big giant group picture. And then James Hetfield took his jacket off and gave it to Rose.
Yeah,
bullshit.
Don't you have that one?
I don't. And you know what's kind of crazy? Moving around, you know, being a brat, you lose things along the way. And for some reason, I don't know where that went, and I wish I still had it.
You don't know where the jacket that James Hetfield gave you went?
Something tells me I think I might have let someone borrow it. I just don't know.
I still have my beer bottle that James Hetfield signed, my Koenig Pilsner. Okay, I still have it. But hey, you guys, we could talk about Metallica all day. That was good times. Scott, also for this whole thing was about being a stateside and an overseas brat, right? What do you feel are the differences? I mean, you shared a little bit about that, but I mean, there is a big difference between being a seaside. Like my husband is a state, he's a brat. He's an Air Force brat, and he moved like 12 times, but always stateside. Is there a difference in your eyes?
Oh, sure. I don't keep track of how many times we moved. I think it was 7 or 8 in 18 years.
That's a lot.
But it was a lot. I will tell you this, and I often joke with people when they ask about like, where are you from? I say I grew up in the military. Thanks for the free tour around the world. And I really believe that. I mean, in 1984, when my dad got orders, originally it was for Turkey.
Oh, wow.
And my mom was like, hell to the no, we're not going. If you end up going to Turkey, you're going on your own. We're staying here in the States.
Yeah.
And my dad pulled a couple favors with some general friends of his and got us to Heidelberg. And if I had any idea then what that was going to mean for the rest of my life. It was those 3 years in Europe, and most importantly, the 1 year in Rheinberg. And I can't emphasize it enough. And I don't mean to romanticize it or anything like that, but it was just life defining. Those 3 years that we lived in Europe between 84 and 87 were the most incredible 3 years of my life. And
it's amazing.
I got to see so many things. I used to always tell people, I lived more before I was 17 years old than you get to live in your entire life.
Oh, wow. That's so true. Yeah.
And I saw things. I mean, I went yachting in Sweden with Ronnie. I went skiing in the Alps in Switzerland and Austria.
Hey, we went to Disneyland the first day it opened in Paris.
I did not do that.
Did we do that, Rose? No, that was Japan. See, when you're a military brat, you forget. We went to the first day opening of Japan's Disneyland.
But I remember being at the International School Dusseldorf, and I was on the soccer team. And I mean, it was like being on a semi-pro team because we could only play other international schools. And so we were flown to London.
Right.
We took the train to Berlin, and it was like being on a semi-pro soccer team.
We didn't even talk about that. We went to an international school. We did not go to a military school because they didn't have a DOD school nearby. So they bused us an hour from Rheinberg to Dusseldorf. So just note that, y'all. We were bused in and spent 2.5 hours a day on buses with each other.
And I don't think you can discount that hour-long each-way bus ride.
So much fun.
Oh, gosh,
Listening to our
Soul
music.
Day and Rock Day.
Soul Day and Rock Day, whether it was going to be Run DMC,
Were we doing Prince? Were we doing Prince or Motley Crue? I don't.
Exactly, right?
You never know what to expect. And you know what? Did you see how we all got along? It always worked out, right? Us military brats on the bus. We always had democracy. Like none of us fought about like, no, today's Metallica. This we worked together on this, and I just love that. And well, I mean, we're coming here close to an end, but I know that Rose has some lightning round questions that she wants to ask you, just so we can catch you off guard and see what how you respond to these.
No, I'm on the radio. You ain't gonna bust me.
Nothing surprises
Okay, these
you.
are just simple lightning round questions. Just the thing, whatever comes to the top of your mind as soon as I ask you. Okay.
Right.
Okay. First job.
First job? Burger King, Reinberg.
Okay. How many languages do you speak?
2.
Fort Hood or Fort Cavazos?
Fort Hood.
Okay. Tacos, hamburgers, sushi, or schnitzel?
Schnitzel. Well, stop. That's the craziest question ever. Schnitzel every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Mit Pommes.
You know what? Scott took me to the
lightning round
best
questions.
schnitzel place too in Kansas, didn't you? I ate some really good schnitzel in Kansas.
Grudauer's in Kansas City is legit.
Delicious.
Okay. So place you want to visit that you've never been to.
Greece.
Oh,
The last song or band you listen to.
Rat.
stand
No.
up.
David Lee Ross debut solo album, Eat 'Em and Smile. I listened to that in the shower right before I came down here.
I was going to say,
Good
Scott
one.
is sporting
Good
a
one.
Rat shirt right now, though.
Okay. Favorite sports team.
Sporting Kansas City and then Dusseldorf Fortuna.
Okay. Yeah. Go. for
Yes.
it. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No, God, no.
He just likes to wear sandals and expose his toes all the time.
Okay.
And for little
Scott
be
does
known,
not wear socks.
I don't wear underwear.
God does not.
Nice to know. Duly noted. Okay. So say a word or phrase in German.
Ich heiße Scott. Wie geht es dir? Ganz gut? Bitte.
Yeah, good.
Finally,
Yeah, good.
I can't wait to ask you this one. Texas barbecue or Kansas City barbecue?
Kansas City. Are you kidding me? That's
Oh,
sacrilege.
boo.
That's sacrilege.
Come on now.
There's no comparison.
Oh.
Seriously? Okay, look, we got a little bit of time here to stay on this question. What makes Kansas City barbecue better than Texas barbecue? And I'm a native Texan. My sister was born in Seoul, Korea, but my baby sister Patty and I were
Korean
born
barbecue for me.
we were born we were born at Fort Hood at Darnell Army Hospital. All Texans will tell you our barbecue is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Kansas City so good? What makes it so good? What makes it so good?
It's authentic and it's legit.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, have you
Where
guys
should
ever
we go eat?
watched?
What recommend a place? What's the best barbecue in where you're at?
Well, it's called Joe's Kansas City now, but it used to be called Oklahoma Joe's. It's a barbecue joint it's actually in a gas station.
Okay.
At
Kansas
39
City listeners, listen to that. I got some friends in Kansas City listening to this, so
Everybody in Kansas City knows where Oklahoma Joe's is.
nice.
No, it's legit. Lisa, next time you're up here, I'll take you there. I mean, they're so
I'm bringing
good.
Rose with me next time.
Fine, bring it.
I can't contribute to this conversation because I have not had Kansas City barbecue, but I hear it is totally legit.
It is
I
good.
am-
So, did you guys ever watch Ted Lasso?
Love Ted
Yes.
Lasso.
I love
Believe,
Ted Lasso.
believe.
Just finished
So-
the season last week.
Yeah. No spoilers for those who haven't heard.
And, yeah, I won't spoil it, but season 3 was the best season. You might notice Jason Sudeikis, who's from here, literally went to high school right down the street. His mom's a travel agent. And Paul Rudd, well, Paul Rudd's not in Ted Lasso, but they all kind of run together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd's mom used to work with us at the radio station, and his dad was my travel agent before he died. God bless him.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, you'll notice, like in the show, Jason Sudeikis wears a shirt that says Arthur's, Brian's, Joe's, Stackhouse.
Okay.
And those are the 4 main barbecue joints here in town: Arthur Bryant's,
Huh.
Oklahoma Joe's, Jack Stack, and whatever one I left out. But he wears a shirt with all 4 names of the major barbecue joints here in town.
Wow. Well, Parks, when you come here, we'll have to take you to a few Texas barbecue places. But like Rose said, we also love our Korean barbecue. As you know, we are half Korean. You know what, you guys? That was fun. This was our first pilot show. And I'm so happy that Parks was our first guest. Scott, is there anything you want to plug that you're doing before we let you go that you want folks to know, or anything you want to say there to other military brats out there?
Nothing I want to plug necessarily. I mean, I just host a #1 afternoon radio show here in Kansas City. But
Dana and Parks. Tell Dana I said hi, by the way.
I will. I will say this to the Army brats who might be watching this podcast. When you look back on it, and there are times I look back on it and I feel a little cheated, if that makes any sense. Cheated that I didn't get to grow up with a whole bunch of people, for 12 years and play football or soccer or whatever and date the same girl you know the deal. But when I do look back on it and I think about it, what a blessed life I had. How lucky was I? And when you grow up in the military, and I know I'm extending our time here just a minute, so forgive me. When you grow up in the military like we did, you just think this is how everybody grows up. Everybody moves every 3 or 4 years or every 2 or 3 years. And that's just the way life is. And you don't know any different. I'm glad I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
You're absolutely right.
How lucky was I?
The only part we were unlucky is I wish I had an iPhone back then, because all these places, like I've been to the Eiffel Tower, I've been to the Leaning Tower, and I've been to the Vatican. I have nothing to prove. I have no pictures, because the few pictures I did take, you know what I mean? Like in the 80s, we didn't do that. All you military brats out there, note this, take pictures and appreciate, because my memories are all up in my head. But you know what, Scott, like as us brats say, we don't say goodbye to each other, right? We never say goodbye. What do we say, Rose?
We say, see you later.
Parks, we love you. And we are really proud of you. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I'm honored and I'm humbled that you let me be the first one on your show.
Wouldn't have anybody else.
Nobody. We love you.
Love you.
Too. All right. Be good.
Well, that wraps up our pilot episode. It just went by way too quickly.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun.
That was lots of fun. A lot of fun. What's coming up?
Well, our next podcast drops Monday, August 28th, with special guest Dwight Andre Littlejohn, who is a Shark Tank entrepreneur.
Oh, I love that show.
Me too.
Very cool. Well, please send any of your suggestions for guest appearances to our email, info@punkbrats.com, or visit our website at punkbrats.com. As brats, we never say goodbye. What do we say, Rose?
We say, see you later.
See you later.